1. Let me tell you about this 1981 Ford F-350 I found on Marketplace for $3,500. This is an old-school workhorse with a 351 V8 under the hood and a 5-speed manual transmission, which is actually a pretty desirable combination for these classic trucks. The white exterior paired with the blue interior is a classic Ford truck combo from this era. The seller notes it's a good running truck, and with only 2,000 miles shown, though on these older trucks, you should assume the odometer has rolled over at least once. Being a 1981 model, you're looking at a truck that's over 40 years old, so expect some wear and tear that comes with age. The seller is open to trades and seems pretty straightforward about it being a running, functional vehicle. For $3,500, this could be a decent deal if you're looking for a classic F-350 with the robust 351 engine. These trucks were built to work, and many are still doing just that today. Just remember, this is an early 80s truck, so you'll want to check for the usual suspects: rust in the cab corners and bed, transmission function, and overall mechanical condition. The price point suggests it's not a show truck, but could be a solid project or work truck if everything checks out mechanically. 2. Let's talk about this 1977 Chevy 2500 that's listed for $5,000. I've got to be straight with you. This one's showing its age and has some issues that need addressing. The seller's being pretty honest about the condition, which I appreciate. They're pointing out rust problems in the rocker panels and floorboards, which is something you'll definitely want to take seriously. These are structural areas that could require significant work. On the positive side, the seller has done some recent maintenance work, including new spark plugs, plug wires, power steering pump, pulleys, water pump, and thermostat housing. That's actually a decent amount of mechanical upkeep. It's a gas model, not diesel, and it's a 2WD, which makes it simpler mechanically than a 4x4 version. At $5,000, you're looking at a classic work truck that needs some TLC, especially with that rust situation. These 77 Chevys are known for being solid workhorses, but this one's going to need some body work if you want to keep it long-term. The automatic transmission is a plus for everyday usability, but make sure to check how it shifts. Bottom line, if you're handy with a welder and don't mind tackling some rust repair, this could be a project worth considering. Just go in knowing you'll need to address those rust issues before they get worse. These old Chevys have a strong following, and parts are generally available, but make sure to factor in repair costs when considering the asking price. 3. Let's talk about this 1979 Chevy K20 listed for $4,000. I've got to be completely honest here. There are some red flags we need to discuss. The seller's description is pretty vague, which is concerning. They're telling us it needs a fuel line repair, but then add, "not sure what else," which could mean you're buying into unknown problems. The fact that it's been sitting since spring isn't great either. Vehicles that sit tend to develop additional issues. The truck shows 906 miles, but on a 79 model, that odometer has definitely rolled over at least once. It's a K20, which means it's a 444 model. These are desirable trucks when they're running right. The blue exterior with black interior is a classic combo, and these square-body Chevys have a strong following in the truck community. For $4,000 firm, I've got to say, that's a pretty steep ask for a non-running truck with admitted issues and potential hidden problems. Sure, these K20s are valuable when restored, but you're looking at a project here. The seller's firm price stance is bold considering they can't even tell you everything that's wrong with it. If you're interested, you'll definitely want to do a thorough inspection. Check for the usual suspects: rust in the cab corners, bed and frame, brake lines, and the overall condition of the 4x4 system. These are great trucks when they're running, but going in blind on a non-running example is risky. Make sure you're ready for a project if you're considering this one. 4. Let me tell you about this really interesting 1979 El Camino that's listed for $13,700. This isn't your average El Camino. We're looking at what appears to be a well-preserved example with some desirable features that make it stand out. First off, this is a Royal Night Edition, which is a special appearance package that adds some nice visual flair. The gold exterior with tan leather interior is a classic 70s combo that really works. What's really impressive is the claimed 26,800 original miles, which, if verified, is incredibly low for a 44-year-old vehicle. The seller's description is quite detailed and encouraging. They mention it's a numbers-matching vehicle with its original 350 engine and TH350 transmission. Both the heat and factory AC are working, which is rare for a car this age, and it's got some nice features like power steering, power brakes, and the factory AM/FM radio. The 3.08 rear-end ratio makes it a comfortable highway cruiser. What really catches my attention is that it's reportedly rust-free and has been kept in a climate-controlled garage. That's huge for these vehicles, as rust is usually their biggest enemy. The seller mentions it runs and drives great, with newer tires and clean factory-style rally wheels. At $13,700, while it's not cheap, it's actually reasonably priced for a well-maintained, low-mileage El Camino with the Royal Night package, especially if everything checks out as described. These vehicles have a strong following, and finding one with working AC, no rust, and original matching numbers isn't easy. Just remember to verify that mileage and check all the documentation, but if everything checks out, this could be a solid investment in a classic that you can actually drive and enjoy right away. The seller seems open to trades too, which might be interesting for some buyers. 5. Let me tell you about this 1965 Chevy C10 that's listed for $6,000. I appreciate the seller's honesty here. They're really upfront about what you're getting, which makes my job easier. This is a long bed Fleetside C10 that's been serving as someone's daily driver, which actually says a lot about its reliability. The truck's running a 250 cc inline 6 from a 78 Nova, about 100k miles on it, paired with a Saginaw 3-speed manual transmission. That's your classic 3-on-the-tree setup, but with the bonus of a synchronized first gear, which makes it easier to drive than the original. Let's be straight about the condition. It's got the typical rust issues you'd expect in a 60-year-old truck. Rocker panels and floors need attention, but mechanically it seems solid. The seller's done some good maintenance, new brakes about a year ago, recent U-joint replacements, and it's running an HEI ignition system which is more reliable than the original setup. The 3.08 rear end makes it highway friendly, and they claim it'll do 65-70 mph comfortably while getting about 15 non-mpg. What's cool is all the extra parts that come with it. You're getting the original 6-lug rear end, 3.73 ratio, disc brake spindles, extra control arms, and some lowering springs. That's pretty valuable for someone planning to modify or restore it. For $6,000, you're looking at a running, driving classic truck that needs some body work, but could be either a good project base or kept as a patina daily driver. The speedometer needs work, but that's pretty minor in the grand scheme. These C10s have a huge following, and parts are readily available. Just go in knowing you'll need to address that rust eventually. But meanwhile, you've got a functional classic truck that you can actually use while you work on it. That's not a bad deal in today's market, especially with all those extra parts thrown in. 6. Let's talk about this interesting 1984 Chevy Suburban that's up for $5,500. This is definitely not your typical Suburban. It's been built into quite a unique rig with some serious modifications. Let's start with the good stuff. It's reportedly rust-free, which is huge for an '84 model. It's running a 6.2L diesel engine that's been turbocharged, not stock, sitting on a Sirius 6-inch lift with massive 37-inch military tires with run flats. The military Kark tan paint gives it a really distinctive look. The seller's done some recent work. New Skyjacker shocks, fresh front brakes with new rotors and calipers, new drag link, and a new power steering pump. All the windows work, including the rear one with key operation, which is often broken on these. Now, let's be honest about the issues. There's no AC, pretty common for these old rigs. The heater blower motor needs replacing, and both the speedometer and fuel gauge aren't working. The seller mentions it tops out at about 55 mph, which suggests it might need some drivetrain tuning. Those big tires and lift can affect performance. With the TH350 transmission and 205 transfer case, you've got a solid drivetrain setup, but that 55 mph top speed means this is more of an off-road or farm vehicle than a highway cruiser. The seller's been using it for farm work and camping, which seems like its sweet spot. At $5,500, you're getting a unique, lifted, diesel-powered 404 that needs some attention to the gauges and comfort features. It's not for everyone, but if you're looking for a capable off-road rig or a unique farm vehicle, this could be interesting. Just don't expect it to be your daily highway commuter. The seller's firm on no trades and seems motivated to sell. 7. Let's talk about this 1984 Dodge Ram Charger listed for $2,750. I've got to be straight with you, this is definitely a project vehicle, and the seller's being pretty upfront about that fact. This Ram Charger comes with the desirable 360 V8 engine and is in the Prospector trim level, which was a nice package back in the day. The tan-on-tan color combo is pretty classic for these 80s SUVs. However, let's get real about the condition. There are some significant issues here. The seller admits it runs enough to transport, which honestly isn't the most confidence-inspiring description. There are several immediate needs. It needs at least 2 front tires, new shocks all around, and has a loose steering column. That last one is particularly concerning from a safety standpoint. The mileage is unknown, which on an 84 model usually means the odometer has stopped working or rolled over. At $2,750, you're buying a project that needs immediate attention to be safely drivable. These Ram Chargers have a cult following, and the 360 engine is a strong point, but you'll need to factor in the cost of repairs. The loose steering column could be a simple fix, or indicate bigger steering system issues. If you're mechanically inclined and looking for a project Ram Charger to restore, this could be a starting point. Just go in with your eyes open and expect to invest more money and time to get it roadworthy. It's not a jump in and drive situation by any means. 8. Let's check out this 1978 Chevy 1500 4x4 that's listed for $5,500. What we've got here is an interesting setup. It's a long bed with a fresh crate 350 engine that's only got 400 miles on it, which is definitely a major plus point. The white exterior with red interior is a classic color combination for these square-body Chevys. Being a 444 model adds value, as these are becoming increasingly desirable among collectors and enthusiasts. The seller mentions it's a 2-owner truck with a clean title, which is pretty good for a vehicle that's over 40 years old. Now, the seller's description is pretty brief, almost too brief. They say there are no issues besides seat, but on a truck this age, you'll want to verify everything carefully. While a fresh crate motor is great, you'll want to check the condition of other major components like the transmission, transfer case, and differentials. At $5,500, considering you're getting a 4R4 square body with a fresh crate 350, the price isn't unreasonable in today's market, especially if the rest of the truck is solid. However, that seat issue they mentioned will need addressing for daily comfort, and you'll want to thoroughly inspect for any rust or other age-related issues they haven't mentioned. Just remember, even with a new engine, this is still a 45-year-old truck, so expect to deal with typical old vehicle quirks. But if everything checks out, you're looking at a classic 4x4 with a fresh heart that could be a solid investment or a great driver. 9. Let's talk about this 1981 Chevy 2500 listed for $6,500. This is an interesting one because it's got some history to unpack here. The seller's calling it a survivor, and with 80,000 miles claimed, that could be legitimate for a truck of this age. Here's what makes this truck intriguing. It originally came with a big block 454 engine, which comes with the truck, but it's currently running a 350 V8. The original numbers matching 454 being included in the sale is a significant value point for collectors. It's backed by a TH400 transmission, which is one of the most robust automatic transmissions ever made, and the seller notes it shifts solid. The truck features a factory posi-traction rear end, which is a desirable option. The seller emphasizes that it drives straight with no highway drift and has tight steering. These are good points because these old trucks often develop steering issues over time. At $6,500, you're looking at a truck that offers some interesting possibilities. You could keep running it with the 350 for better fuel economy, or reinstall the numbers matching 454 to restore it to original specs. The green exterior gives it that classic period-correct look. Just keep in mind that any 40-plus-year-old truck will need attention in various areas, and you'll want to inspect the usual rust-prone areas carefully. Also, if you're planning to swap back to the 454, you'll want to verify its condition and factor in the cost of the engine swap. Overall, for someone looking for a classic heavy-duty Chevy with some interesting options, this could be worth checking out. 10. Let's talk about this 1978 Ford F-150 XLT Camper Special that's listed for $3,000. I've got to be upfront here. There are some red flags we need to discuss. First, let's talk about the good stuff. Being an XLT Camper Special, this is a desirable trim level, and its history as a fire department truck is interesting. The seller claims the interior is in amazing condition, with the original radio still present, which is pretty cool if true. The black-on-black color scheme is always classic. However, here's where things get tricky. The truck currently doesn't have keys, which means it's not running or driving at the moment. While the seller says they're looking at having keys made, that's not a guarantee, and there could be other issues hidden by the fact that it can't be properly tested. The claim of 10,000 miles seems unlikely for a 45-year-old truck unless it's rolled over multiple times. At $3,000, you're basically buying a project that you can't fully evaluate until you get it running. Yes, they say it does run and the brakes work, but without keys, there's no way to verify this. The very solid claim needs to be verified with a thorough inspection, especially for rust in typical problem areas. If you're interested in this truck, you'll want to factor in the cost of getting keys made, which might require a locksmith specializing in older vehicles, and be prepared for any surprises once you can actually start and drive it. These old F-150s are great trucks when running, but going in blind on a non-running example is risky. The seller's firm no trades or offers stance is bold considering the truck's current state. 11. Let me tell you about this 1972 Chevy L-Love pickup listed for $1,500. These little trucks are getting pretty rare, and this one's got an interesting story to tell. Let's be completely honest here. This is a non-running project truck that hasn't been started in a few years. However, there are some positives worth noting. The seller mentions it's relatively unmolested with its original inline-4 engine still in place. Being a high desert truck, it's reportedly fairly rust-free in the important areas. The cab, front fenders, and rockers are described as solid, though the bed has some issues. The interior actually sounds pretty decent with some nice updates. New headliner, carpet, dash cover, door panels, and a clean bench seat, though it's from a Datsun, not original. The odometer shows 94,574 miles, but as with most vehicles this age, that could have rolled over. At $2,500 firm, you're buying a project that'll need some work to get running again. The good news is it comes with a tow bar already mounted, so getting it home won't be a problem. These Chevy L-Loves, which were actually built by Isuzu, are becoming increasingly collectible, especially unmolested examples. If you're interested in a unique project and are familiar with these little trucks, or willing to learn, this could be an interesting opportunity. Just go in knowing you'll need to invest time and money to get it running again. The seller seems pretty straightforward about the condition and has another 72 LUV they're working on, which suggests they know these trucks well. Remember, this isn't a running vehicle. It's a project that needs resurrection, but the price reflects that, and the desert-preserved body could make it worth the effort for the right person. 12. Let's talk about this 1962 Ford F-100 that's listed for $10,000. This is an interesting one because it's what's known as an odd body, a term used for the unique 1962 F-100 body style that was only produced for 1 year, making it somewhat rare and collectible. The truck's running a 302 V8 small block, which isn't original to the truck. These would have come with different engines in '62, but is a popular and reliable swap. The seller mentions they've installed a new starter and water pump, which is good basic maintenance. It's equipped with an automatic transmission, which makes it more user-friendly for regular driving. The red exterior with black interior is a classic color combination that works well on these trucks. The claimed 35,000 miles should be taken with a grain of salt, On a 61-year-old vehicle, the odometer has likely rolled over unless there's documented proof of the mileage. At $10,000, you're paying for the uniqueness of the one-year-only body style and what appears to be a solid classic truck. However, the seller's description is pretty sparse. They don't mention the condition of the body, any rust issues, or how well it runs and drives. For this price point, you'll definitely want to do a thorough inspection. These 62 F100s have a dedicated following due to their unique styling and rarity. If everything checks out mechanically and the body is solid, this could be a good investment in a distinctive classic truck. Just make sure to verify the condition in person, as the brief description leaves a lot of questions unanswered. 13. Let's check out this 1968 Chevy C20 service bed truck listed for $6,500. This is an interesting find, especially being a claimed one-owner vehicle with 80,000 miles. What makes this truck notable is that it's a C20 3/4-ton with a service bed, which is a more heavy-duty setup than your typical pickup. These service bed trucks are becoming increasingly popular, both for actual work use and as unique restoration projects. The gray exterior with black interior is a practical combination for a work truck. The seller's description is pretty brief, but they mention it's in great condition with new tires, which is a plus. However, they do admit the interior needs a little bit of work, which is pretty typical for a truck of this age that was likely used as a working vehicle. At $6,500, you're looking at a truck that could go one of two ways. Either keep it as a functional work truck. These service beds are super useful for contractors or as a shop truck. Or turn it into a restoration project. The one-owner history is valuable if documented, as it usually means better maintenance and care over the years. Just keep in mind that with any 55-year-old truck, you'll want to thoroughly inspect for rust and mechanical issues. The seller's description is pretty sparse on details about the mechanical condition, so you'll definitely want to check all the usual trouble spots and verify how well it runs and drives. These C20s are solid trucks when properly maintained, but they're also old enough to need some attention in various areas. 14. Let's talk about this 1974 Chevy 1500 that's listed for $6,000. This is a camper special model, which means it came with some extra heavy-duty components from the factory to handle the weight of a camper. The truck shows 20,200 miles, but on a nearly 50-year-old vehicle, we should assume the odometer has rolled over at least once, unless there's solid documentation proving otherwise. The blue-on-blue color combination is a classic 70s look, and being a two-owner vehicle suggests it might have a decent history. However, I've got to be honest, the seller's description is extremely brief, almost concerningly so. They're only telling us it's a square-body camper special and that it's two-wheel drive. There's no mention of the engine, running condition, rust status, or any recent maintenance or repairs. For a $6,000 asking price, you'd expect more details about the truck's condition and history. These square-body Chevys are highly desirable right now, and the camper special trim adds value. However, before considering this one at $6,000, you'll want to do a thorough inspection. Check for the usual rust spots, cab corners, rocker panels, bed, verify the mechanical condition, and ask about maintenance history. The price could be fair if the truck is in good condition, but with such a minimal description, you'll need to see it in person to make that determination. These trucks are known for being reliable workhorses when properly maintained, but they're also old enough to have developed significant issues if neglected. 15. We're taking a closer look at a 1964 Ford F-150 that's currently up for sale. The seller is asking $8,500 or best offer for this classic pickup truck. Now, let's dive into the details. This 64 F-150 is a long bed model, powered by a small block 302 cubic inch engine and an automatic transmission. The exterior is finished in a tan color, while the interior sports a black theme. The seller mentions that the truck runs and drives great, which is always a good sign. According to the listing, this F-150 has covered an impressive 620,000 miles over its lifetime. That's a testament to the durability of these old Ford trucks. Despite the high mileage, The seller claims that the vehicle has no significant damage or problems and comes with a clean title. One of the most appealing aspects of this listing is that the seller states the truck is super clean and has lots of new parts. It's always reassuring to know that a classic vehicle has been well maintained and has received recent upgrades. However, it's important to note that the seller mentions the truck is in no-op, which likely means in need of paint. This suggests that while the truck is mechanically sound and clean overall, the exterior may have some cosmetic imperfections or require a fresh coat of paint to truly shine. The seller is open to offers or even a trade, which could be an opportunity for potential buyers to negotiate a better deal or swap another vehicle they may have. Overall, this 1964 Ford F-150 seems to be a solid classic truck with a lot of character. The high mileage may be a concern for some buyers, but the seller's description suggests that the vehicle has been well cared for and has plenty of life left in it. If you're in the market for a vintage workhorse with a clean title and lots of new parts, this F-150 could be worth checking out. Just keep in mind that it may need some cosmetic work to match its mechanical prowess. 16. We're putting the spotlight on a classic 1963 GMC 1500 regular cab truck. The seller has listed this beauty for $10,000 or best offer. First off, let's talk about the mileage. This 63 GMC has covered 176,470 miles, which is relatively low for a vehicle of this age. It's a testament to the longevity and build quality of these classic trucks. Under the hood, you'll find the original V6 engine. The seller mentions that it was partially rebuilt about 8 years ago before they acquired the truck. This suggests that the engine has received some attention and care, which is always a good sign when considering a classic vehicle purchase. Now, it's important to note that the seller's description is quite brief. They haven't provided a lot of details about the truck's overall condition, both mechanically and cosmetically. The lack of information could be a red flag for some potential buyers, as it leaves room for uncertainty about the true state of the vehicle. When dealing with classic trucks like this, it's crucial to gather as much information as possible before making a decision. Interested buyers should definitely take the seller up on their offer to message them for more details. Ask about the truck's history, any known issues, and request additional photos if possible. While the partial engine rebuild is a positive point, it's essential to find out exactly what work was done and how the truck has been maintained since then. A thorough inspection by a qualified mechanic is always recommended when considering the purchase of a classic vehicle. Cosmetically, the photos provided show a truck that appears to be in decent shape for its age. However, without more detailed images and information, it's hard to say for certain. There could be hidden rust issues or other cosmetic flaws that aren't immediately apparent. 17. We're putting the spotlight on a 1978 Dodge D150 short bed truck that's up for grabs on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has set the price at $5,200, so let's dive in and see what this classic pickup has to offer. First off, let's talk about the heart of this beast. Under the hood, you'll find an inline 6-cylinder engine, specifically the 225 cubic inch slant 6. This motor is known for its durability and reliability, and the seller has sweetened the deal by upgrading it with an HEI ignition conversion. That means better spark and improved performance. The carburetor has also been professionally rebuilt, ensuring that this engine is running at its best. Now, let's shift our focus to the transmission. The seller mentions that the 727 transmission and torque converter have been professionally rebuilt as well. That's great news for anyone who wants a smooth and reliable driving experience. Plus, the floor shift conversion adds a touch of sportiness to the interior. Speaking of the interior, the seller has given it some love too. They've installed new carpet, which is always a welcome upgrade in a classic truck. The rubber gaskets around the doors and windows have also been replaced, helping to keep the elements out and the comfort in. On the exterior, the seller has opted for some modern upgrades in the form of LED headlights. Not only do they look cool, but they also improve visibility and safety. The truck is finished in a tan exterior color, complemented by a brown interior. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the mileage. The seller states that the truck has been driven 60,000 miles. While that might seem low for a vehicle from 1978, it's important to keep in mind that the odometer could have rolled over, or the engine could have been replaced at some point. As always, it's crucial to verify the mileage and the vehicle's history before making a purchase. 18. We're checking out a 1972 Chevrolet Silverado that's for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller is asking $10,500 for this classic truck, so let's see what it's all about. First things first, let's talk about the mileage. This Silverado has clocked in at 186,000 miles. Now, for a truck that's almost 50 years old, that's not too shabby. It's a testament to the durability of these old Chevys. However, it's important to keep in mind that with higher mileage comes the potential for more wear and tear, so a thorough inspection is always a good idea. Under the hood, you'll find a gasoline engine paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. That's right, this truck is for those who love to row their own gears. The seller doesn't specify the exact engine size, but given the year and model, it's likely a big block V8 with plenty of torque. Now, let's talk about the exterior. This Silverado is rocking a green paint job, which is a classic color for these trucks. The seller mentions that it needs some body work, so it's not a show truck by any means. But hey, if you're looking for a project or a truck to use as a daily driver, a little patina never hurt anyone. Plus, with a 4-inch lift and 35-inch tires, this truck has a mean stance that's sure to turn heads. Moving on to the interior, the seller doesn't provide too many details. But based on the exterior color, it's safe to assume that the interior is also green. It's worth noting that the seller states the vehicle has no significant damage or problems, which is always a good sign. Other notable features include a disc brake conversion, which is a nice upgrade from the original drum brakes. The truck also has a long bed, which means plenty of room for hauling gear or tackling tough jobs. The seller mentions that the truck comes with a clean title, so there are no major red flags in terms of ownership history or legal status. 19. Let me tell you about this 1983 Ford Ranger I found on Marketplace. At $4,500, we're looking at a classic little pickup with some interesting features. It's rocking a 2.3L engine paired with a manual 4-speed transmission and 4x4 capability, which is a pretty sweet combo for an old-school truck. The seller's got it sitting on some beefy 31-inch tires with a small lift, giving it that nice, rugged stance. Now, let's be honest here, it's not perfect, and I appreciate the seller being upfront about its issues. The truck needs some work on the distributor or its gear, and while the body's mostly solid with minimal rust, those floor pans could use some attention. That's pretty typical for a 40-year-old truck, though. The red exterior with tan interior is a classic color combination, and having a clean title is definitely a plus. For someone who enjoys working on older vehicles and appreciates vintage Ford Rangers, this could be a cool project. The seller's even open to trades for a trailer or something cool, so there's some flexibility in the deal. At this price point, considering its age and condition, you're getting a classic 4x4 with potential. Just be prepared to put in some work to get it running right, especially with that distributor issue. It's not a perfect truck, but it's got character, and with some TLC, it could be a really neat little rig. 20. Let's talk about this 1985 Ford E250 van I found on Marketplace. I've got to be straight with you, this one's a bit of a project. Listed at $4,500, we're looking at a high-mileage diesel van with 286,321 miles on the clock. And there's some important stuff you need to know. The seller's being honest about the engine knock, which is a pretty serious issue that could mean expensive repairs or a complete engine replacement. That's not something to take lightly. While it does have a turbo kit, which could be interesting for the right buyer, the engine problems overshadow that feature right now. On the positive side, it's got a clean title, and the seller mentions it's really clean, aside from a little rust. The blue-on-blue color scheme is classic for these old vans. But let's be real, with that engine knock, you're either looking at fixing it yourself, which the seller mentions they might do, or negotiating a lower price and taking on the repair yourself. These old E250s are workhorses when they're running right, and the diesel engine can be reliable, but at this point, you're basically buying a project vehicle. For $4,500, considering the engine issues, You'd want to be pretty confident in your mechanical abilities or have a good relationship with a diesel mechanic before taking this one on. It's not a bad van, but that engine knock is the elephant in the room that needs to be addressed.